One of the most difficult skills for any leader, innovator, or entrepreneur to master is solid decision making. In fact, decision making is the executive part of chief executive officer, and you've got to master it. Look, some skills you can fake, even leadership itself. I'm not kidding. You can fake that all the way to the end. Other skills you can farm out, like marketing, sales, or coding. Decision making? You've got to be good at it. No, you've got to be great at it. It's one of the few metrics that directly correlates to success, where you can look back on your decisions, and to dumb it down completely, if you made 9 good decisions out of 10, you're probably at 90% of where you want to be, give or take a couple points. So how do you know if you're good at it? The core of good decision making is being honest with your criteria and honest with your results. We rarely tell the truth to ourselves and about ourselves at either the beginning of the decision making process or at the end. No one likes to admit that fear and emotion play a large part in the process. No one likes to mitigate risk. No one likes to dwell on their own failures. So that's where we start. And once we've reached peak honesty, it all kind of comes down to pulling the trigger. Now, there are all sorts of philosophical cautionary tales here. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Rock in a hard place. Should I stay or should I go? And if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Yeah, those last two are from The Clash and Rush, respectively. But they're probably copped from Ayn Rand or Camus or something very deep and intellectual. Anyway, mastering the art of decision making is not as convoluted as it sounds, and there are maybe 3 things you need to consider when making a big decision. Now, the first concept to get your head around is, if you're doing a startup or leadership or innovation right, then everything you do is an experiment. It doesn't matter how much the decision costs, how many people it impacts, or what it means for the future of your company. It's only a test, whether you're choosing a marketing strategy or hiring a co-founder. It might work out, it might not. Nothing is guaranteed, so loosen up. Now that begs a very good question. If all decisions are pointless, why make any in the first place? Well, because someone has to, because if you don't, you're going to stagnate and fail. Starting a business, despite what a lot of people will tell you, isn't about surviving, it's about winning, as crass as that sounds. And while you can coast on your last success for quite a long time, that time always ends with the doors being shut. So when you make decisions, you should never be choosing between 2 options. Instead, you need to be choosing among several plans. Each plan should start with a choice and then branch out like a tree to a number of different experimental steps and outcomes. Each branch should be a hypothesis with its own definition of success and failure. You should continue to build off each branch and trim away the ones you abandon, and you should reassess each time you trim. This is no longer an option. What are my options now? You do this because what you're doing has never been done before. There is no expert. There will be no wisdom of the crowd. It's up to you to build the structure, ask the questions, provide the answers. So draw up your blueprints in advance. Now, once you've got your experiments set up and your hypotheses ready to test, your expert, your guide, your guru is going to be the numbers. Now, I don't have to tell you what a minimum viable product is, but I will tell you that while a lot of people swear by an MVP strategy, few actually execute it. Now, there are a whole bunch of reasons why they don't. The fear of putting out something that's not ready, the fear of customer backlash, the fear of a reputation hit. An MVP is not a coming soon page or a slide deck. It's something you can put out there for real customers to use in real situations, and one that fails. If your MVP doesn't break at the extremes, it's not an MVP, and it's probably got several bells and whistles built into it that aren't going to be successful for you, no matter how much you or your customers love them. So what is an MVP? Let's walk through one. So if I'm building Uber or Lyft, my MVP looks nothing like the app we know. Maybe all my app does is log you in, find your location, and present you with a nice big button to request a ride. Once that happens, getting you where you need to go can be a manual, duct-taped, non-repeatable, expensive mess. Maybe you've got someone watching the back end, waiting for a ride request. Maybe you've got friends with cars running. Maybe you're only using cash for the transaction. It doesn't matter. The point is that at each step in the process, you're collecting data. How important is each step? How expensive is it? Which parts are expensive? Where do things go wrong? Now, the whole thing may come crashing down, but you're learning, and you've got enough backup plans not just to survive, but to win. And once you've got data to support what you're building, the decisions become easier. If you can save X dollars or generate Y dollars of revenue with a feature that costs just Z dollars to build and perfect, then that's where you go. Everyone says fail often and fail quickly, and I believe in that, to a point. It's a great way to talk about experimentation, wrapped in a quick soundbite that makes the people who aren't living the experiment seem savvy, but it also scares the people who are living it. Let's break it down. You should always be willing to try something. If you're experimenting, the bridges you burn are bridges that weren't going to work for you anyway. You need to fight hard to prove your hypothesis, but at the end of the experiment, you're going to break it down and rebuild it, whether it succeeds or fails. No decision is either 100% right or 100% wrong. You just need to be honest about how right or how wrong you were. So if you're looking at the decision as a road to take, you need to have routes off that road that you can use to go around the roadblocks. I change my ideas and plans probably a dozen times during execution, and honestly, if the whole plan proves out to be nonsense, I'll abandon it. Even though I'm giving the plan all I've got, I'm never married to a single idea. The second part, fail quickly, is relative. Now, I've always said that you should take about 6 weeks to fully vet an idea before bailing on it. Some people think that's crazy short, others think it's way too long, but it's what I'm comfortable with is fail quickly, so you do what's right for you. Regardless of how long it takes, you need to be on the lookout for lifelines, little pings of success that might keep you going for months, as long as you tweak and enhance and pivot off that original plan. Now, those lifelines can be good and bad. Ideas take time, but they also take resources, money, opportunity cost, bridge burning, and so on. So months, maybe. Years? Hell no. Never fail in a vacuum. Talk to people you trust about what went wrong and why. Options that seemed like common sense to you at the time may have actually been insane, and the only way you'll come to terms with that is to hear that until it knocks you off your position. We all have ego. When you do realize your mistake, be proud of it. Lessons are always hard and expensive to learn, but regret doesn't come from mistakes, it comes from action not taken. Then the final step is just don't make the same mistake twice. Now, this sounds like easy advice to give and take, and it is, until you run into a situation where you have the opportunity to pull that failed plan back out of the trash. All of us have that weakness towards insanity. Didn't work the last 10 times I tried it, but this time it's different. It's rarely different. Not never different. If it were never different, it'd be a lot less tempting to repeat those mistakes. But no, sometimes a bad idea in the wrong situation is a great idea in a different situation. Now that's rare. So always mentally mark down the chances that what didn't work last time will work this time. Instead, reset your experiment, get new data, make new plans, and pull the trigger when you're ready. I talk about experimentation a lot, and experimentation and decision-making go hand in hand. Experimentation without decision-making is chaos. It's everyone running around with their hair on fire. Decision-making without experimentation is stagnation. It's merely making choices between easy choice A and easy choice B and living with the very meager results. Now, to tell you the truth, I would be embarrassed at the number of times I've straight up guessed at a very important decision. I don't do this in real life. In fact, my wife will tell you that I'm a very lousy decision maker. It takes me a long time to make important decisions. But in business, I can look at two things, and if I need to make a snap decision and I can't, I'll guess. I used to think this was horribly irresponsible until I learned from some of my mentors that it's exactly what they do as well. So here's an easy decision. If you're building your own business, you need to look into teaching startup. Teaching startup is 80% of the value of a mentor or advisor for about 2% of the cost. We provide access to actionable, insightful, and honest advice for entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders at all experience levels. Basically, I'm trying to solve everything I found frustrating when I first started out as an entrepreneur, then adding everything I've learned and I'm still learning about entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership over the last 20 to 25 years, and creating a new and better solution to an old problem. Teaching Startup members get access to over 700 questions from hundreds of members, answers from handpicked experienced serial entrepreneurs, advice posts, member polls, and new Q&A each week in an exclusive newsletter. So, hey, thank you. Please give me a like or subscribe to the channel, whatever works for you. But if you really want to support what I'm doing here, you can help me help you by becoming a member of Teaching Startup. Now, I appreciate you. Go do great things.